update video every day at 9:30 a.m. And we've been doing this for quite some time. We're going to continue to do it as well. If you do want to join me in the chat room here in the little chat box to the right, it's very straightforward. You just need to have a YouTube account, which is free to create. And then you can do like Main West here and say good morning to me. And good morning to you, sir, Main West. Thanks so much for joining. And anybody else that is watching this, maybe the recording or watching this live. Let's look at the markets. Then let's begin a bit about the GBP USD. You just got some data out. Looking here at my other screen, and retail sales monthly change from the UK was negative 0.1, which is lower than the prior reading, but also lower than the projected forecast of an increase of 0.2. If we look at it year over year, the difference is actually quite big. Retail sales increased by 2.7%. That's retail sales excluding fuel. And that was, again, the annual growth was 2.7%, whereas the forecasted outcome was 3.4%. It's also lower than the reading of the prior month. So we're seeing the pound take a slightly step back on the news. You can see here, this is 9:30. 9:30 the market was trading here, and then it dipped initially by 13 pip. Now looking beyond today's price action, the outlook for me at least remains unchanged. When we took out this low here, the price created a lower low, and when we create a lower low and also have a lower high, then we are on a downtrend. Of course, it looks a bit more like some sort of a flag where the market is just taking a bit of a break. And might, eventually break upwards. This wouldn't be unsurprising, but for now at least, as long as we do trade below 129.33, then the trend will remain bearish. So we have the Euro USD, which took out its low, and that trade idea worked out fine. And you have things as well like the Aussie dollar just tumbling. So I reckon that if the dollar will continue to do good in this environment and could hopefully gain a bit against the pound. But you never know, and that's why we always use stop loss orders, and that is why I always try to keep my risks low, risking maybe 1%, 1.5%, sometimes even less than that if I'm not really very confident in the setup. Looking now at the Euro USD, so we talked about selling here because remember I was bullish from pretty much down here. We went bullish all the way up, and then we continued to be bullish, and then I turned bearish on the break to this because I was just bullish above that level, and the market slid, it went down. But this week has been a very quiet week for the Euro USD. From the high to the low, it's only been in a range of 48 pips. So a long time ago it was this low. In fact, I showed you this guys before, which is the average true range, and we need to go back in time, like on a weekly basis, say 14 weeks. Like we need to go back a long time before volatility is this low. So volatility on a weekly basis, 14 weeks, is about 128 pips. Now that's the average. This week we just done 48. So you need to go back to levels like January and February 1985 to find market volatility in currency market this low. And what can I say? It will usually not be at these low levels for a very long time. The markets tend to do something like this, tend to pick up. Are we gonna go back to the times of the 70s? Well, in the 70s, what was quite special with the 70s? If I remember correctly, the 70s, not that I was around, but if I remember my history class, governments used to use a lot of fiscal policy to try to control the economy, much like they're doing, central banks are doing today. So maybe we'll be stuck in a permanent situation of low volatility, but I think it's unlikely. Volatility most of the time is range bound, so it will bump up, and we have this massive range from here really, which is Not sure why I did that. From 1991. So just for the sake of it though, let's put some Fibonacci on this. Okay. So final ray of hope here. You got that 78 Fibonacci retracement level. So realistically, you just need to bear with the market a little bit longer if you're looking for that market volatility. And remember this, it's when it's quiet that you need to pay attention and accumulate. You just need to be patient. It's not when the market is having a huge volatility surge. It's a bit like Bitcoin. If you get involved at the very end, like December of 2017, you're gonna miss out. It's the same thing here. So I recommend you just stick with it if you want to do this, because volatility will pick up. Now back to present time. What's the outlook here? Well, it remains bearish. We touched that October 15th low, which was my profit target level, and I do think we could probably go upwards to 110.78. I wouldn't go long, even though the RSI and everything is oversold. I would just wait for this to go upwards, then from this level take a position. Now here's a bit disappointing. So stock markets are quite upbeat, and we had an opportunity here, or the market here was going upwards. This is the dollar yen. You had that break here, I think, but then if you sort of look at it from a different perspective, we didn't actually break. And what's happening here, unfortunately, is that this market is now giving up. It's now trading below that support level, which was the November 7th low. And if we do close here, I think we'll trade a little bit lower. Don't necessarily think it's going to be a massive slide where the market will trade much lower, not yet at least. You have this sort of pattern, wedge-like pattern. It's not a high quality pattern, nothing I really focus on, but eventually, if we start to take out this level here, we could trade a bit lower. I would definitely suggest maybe a slide here. And if you take fib of the whole thing, you get different sets of levels. So yeah, if we could eventually start to trade lower, but for now, the way I think this is gonna play out is that I think it's gonna be like one of these, like a one-off sell, and then it's gonna go up quite quickly. Would I be putting my money on this? I don't think so. But if you want to get involved, there's two things here. Either just waiting for this to buy closer to this, which is the November low. The other one would be just a short sell here. If you do have a very bearish view on the world and stock markets, it can be something. There's actually more Aussie dollar yen pairs that are going lower that have better setups. Sorry, yen pairs that have better setups, because you always need to look. So what's happening here effectively is that the yen is gaining, right? So one way of doing it is, go through your list. Like I have a big list. Look at all these different markets, about 120 of them. And then I just pick whatever makes the most sense. Moving along here, gold prices are doing quite good. It's heading higher now, and I think this could go a little bit higher. So this is the first level that we start to look. So we look for weakness in the spot. RSI as well. It's not really at oversold or overbought levels yet, but overall, I think we can have a bit more weakness. It is a little bit like this though, like where things could tilt to the favors of the bulls. And the reason for that is if you look at something like the S&P 500, it's at the highs, and if you can, it's not so difficult to imagine this coming down. Firstly, from an RSI perspective, we just hit that overbought level. Now, if you look at the Andrews pitchfork system, which did a good job, suggesting this low here and this high here and these two spots here, and has in general done quite good. But I wouldn't call it done quite good, because when we create these, we need to adjust the past. So we had no idea that this was going to hold back then. With the help of these points, you could create these points to figure things out here. And if you look at this, had a very, very nice run and move upwards. You might remember it was bullish from down here. The whole thing did go upwards. We're now at these highs. Really good, right? we traded above that upward trending slope, that trend line. Effectively, when we're on that other side, we could hit the next level, so we might go upwards. But this is like a high quality setup where you want to go all in and just relax. No, it's not. So this could potentially go down, and I think if we go down to something like 3048, that could be the first little spot. In fact, this whole area here is interesting. For now, this does remain bullish, but if we do trade below yesterday's low, then that could be something that could start to change as well, and we can probably go downwards. And as well with the German DAX. German DAX is also like about to potentially slide lower, and here, if you put an Andrews pitchfork on this one, you're gonna see that we will be hitting actually the top level, so that would be the best time to sell, really. So if this goes down, which I start to lean towards that that's going to happen, then that could potentially cause gold to spike up higher. So you need to make a judgment call here if you want to go ahead with this idea or not. But technically the gold prices are bearish below the November 7th low. Final market, crude oil prices. Crude oil prices are their own little world. They're not really paying attention to much what's happening in the other markets right now. And you're dealing with this tiny rectangle here. So if we do trade about 57.81, this market might trade slightly higher, towards 59.43. The alternative is just be buying down on dips here, which is my preference. But this has spent quite a lot of time here, so I suspect that if we do have a break, that might make sense. But you need to be realistic. If this is breaking out higher, and then you see US stock markets going down, especially the DAX starting to break support levels, then there's something wrong here. And you can look at the same time, you can look at things like the dollar yen at that point to make a judgment call if crude oil prices are going to be able to deviate from the rest of the markets. We do have as well the crude oil report, the EIA, coming out later today. Okay, let's see if you guys have any questions. So you don't have any questions, which is all good. So we're going to wrap things up. So if you do have questions during the day, you're most welcome to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at AlexFX00. That's the link for that. Okay, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you do enjoy the update, don't forget to hit that like button. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time here on Investing Cube. Have a great day, and thanks so much for watching. Cheers.